It is Monday, the 19th of October 2020, and I'm in the middle of reading Edward Walter Maunder's first expression of his opinion that the winged sun symbols of Mesopotamia and Egypt were inspired by a bird-like pattern that's perceivable in the sun's corona. The video clip ended without my being aware, and I don't know exactly where it ended, where it was cut off. It only goes for 20 minutes, and I guess it went longer. In other words, I kept talking and not realize that it had gone over 20 minutes. So instead of wasting more time, I'm just going to start reading again, and hopefully we should overlap. In any case, I've gone back to the part where he expresses his opinion about the winged discs, and we'll start from there. The comparison of the corona to a star does not, however, always hold equally good, for it is so far from presenting the same appearance in every eclipse that in no two is it of the same shape, brightness, or extent, but its varied appearances may perhaps be grouped under two principal forms. Either as it sends forth beams of nearly equal length from every side, and so presents the appearance of a star, or as the outer corona consists almost entirely of two great streamers on opposite sides of the sun, so that the whole closely resembles the ring with wings, the symbol which on Assyrian monuments is always shown as floating over the head of the king, and which is designed to indicate the presence and the protection of the deity. It is indeed by no means impossible that this symbol actually owed its origin to the revelations of a total eclipse, and not to any supposed analogy between the ring and wings and the divine attributes of eternity and power. So this is it. This is Edward Walter Maunder's first, to my knowledge, public expression of his idea that the specifically Assyrian winged sun symbols, usually depicting Asher within the ring, but not always. Sometimes it's just a disc or indeed a globe, sphere, semi-sphere. He's essentially identifying or putting it out there that these winged sun symbols, sometimes with a god depicted in the solar disk, were in fact inspired by the fact that the total eclipsed sun appears to have these quite condensed streamers on either side of it during some total solar eclipses. And he doesn't mention it in this paragraph, but above and below the sun we see the streamers of the polar regions of the sun, and these streamers above and below the sun, the polar streamers, look like the fanned out tail of a bird. Essentially the sun is a big magnet, and you have the north and south pole, and so it's similar. If you have a magnet with iron filings at the poles, you can see how they fan out in a pattern that shows the magnetic structure, and that's exactly what happens during a total solar eclipse. We see the magnetic structure of the polar regions of the sun in the plumes, rays, and streamers of the polar regions of the sun, and they look, as I said, like the tail of a bird. So again, he doesn't mention it here, but this is his first expression publicly of this particular idea that I'm aware of. He might have had the idea some years earlier. He might have even expressed it here or there in public, in writing somewhere, but this is the earliest expression I know of, and I believe it's dated to 1883. So let's continue on here. However this may be, the fact that the corona varies in so decided a manner from one eclipse to another is a most important fact, for the corona is not the only phenomenon belonging to the sun which varies. The dark markings on the sun, which we call spots, and which measure 50,000 miles in diameter or even more, the bright markings called faculae, and the rosy prominences are not equally frequent at all times. In 1878 and 1879, all three classes were but seldom seen, and when seen were only small. In 1882, all were very numerous and very large. 11 years earlier, in 1871, they had also been numerous, and again 11 years before that. In other words, the sun is very active about once every 11 years. Its activity then gradually declines for about 6 or 7 years until it is almost wholly quiescent, and then for 4 years it grows more active, displaying spots, faculae, and prominences in ever increasing abundance until the end of another period of 11 years, after which it begins again, or again begins to decline. So here he's describing the sunspot cycle, which may, there might be other things that are cycling there, not just sunspots, but the sunspots are evidence of it. Up to the present time, we have had very few opportunities for observing the corona. It has only been visible during the 2 or 3 minutes of a total eclipse, and it has only been properly watched during the last few of these. But so far as the observations go, they all tend to suggest that the corona varies at the same time as the spots, being smaller but more brilliant at the time of greatest activity, and more extended and less brilliant at the time of least. So clearly he's putting it out there that the shape of the corona varies at the same time as the sunspot cycle does. So clearly connecting those two phenomena. If this be so, it lends additional importance to the inquiry, what is the corona? For if it varies with the sun's activity, it may be that we should find in it the explanation of this strange 11-year period and of much else that is mysterious in the sun. And since the variation in the sun's activity is known to produce a most powerful effect on the magnetism of the earth, and as it is suspected by many that it likewise has an influence on our harvests, our storms, our plagues, and our panics, it is clear that the corona is associated with an interest far beyond that which attaches to most of the objects of astronomical research. So it's clear that at that point in time, in the late 1800s, that the corona wasn't that well understood. It's clear that, to Edward Walter Maunder and other quite prominent astronomers, they weren't really sure what exactly the corona was, but they were able to nonetheless, determine, various facts about it, including this linkage with the sunspot cycle. But how to learn more about it, that was the difficulty, since we could only get a glimpse of it for 2 or 3 minutes at a time and at intervals so wide apart. If it could only be seen by daylight, but that was impossible, for scarcely does the merest thread of real sunlight appear from behind the dark moon, then all the bright vision fades, overpowered by the glory that excelleth. So he's saying that as soon as the sun, the actual, orb of the sun emerges from behind the moon that's totally eclipsing it, the corona disappears. That's what he means by the bright vision, and how it's overpowered, by the sun. He uses a flowery term, the glory that excelleth. Impossible. Never mention that stupid word to me, said Napoleon. The slothful man says, there is a lion in the way, and so, Ruskin reminds us, does the brave man. But whilst the sluggard says, it will kill me, the brave man resolves, I will kill it. And in this case, as so many others, the lion, difficulty, has been overcome by ingenuity and perseverance. In the present instance, the lion slaver was Dr. Huggins, an astronomer whose past achievements have well fitted him for the encounter. Dr. Huggins has learned from the observations made during the eclipse of 1882 that the light of the corona was very rich in violet rays. It was possible through the light of the sky, though the light of the sky, let's try it again. It was possible, though the light of the sky caused by the diffusion or scattering of the sunlight in our atmosphere was brighter as a whole than the corona, yet that there might be some particular shade of violet for which the corona would be the brighter. Dr. Huggins resolved therefore to try various violet glasses and violet solutions until one was found which would or should allow just those shades of violet to pass in which the corona was richest and which should stop back every other color. So basically talking about looking at the sun in violet or indeed ultraviolet light, in a normal sky, and being able to see the corona in a normal sky because you're looking at a wavelength of light that's actually brighter than the sky. And yes, human eyes normally don't see ultraviolet light. So anyhow, let's continue on. But this was not all. Violet is not a bright color to the eye, but it acts very quickly on a photographic plate, so that a lady who should have her portrait taken in a violet dress would appear in the photograph to be dressed in white, or at least in some very pale color. Dr. Huggins therefore thought he would have a much better chance of success if he tried photography than if he tried to view the corona directly, the more so that he was well acquainted with the property of the photographic plate, which promised to be of great service. This is its great sensitiveness to small differences of light, a sensitiveness which can be very considerably increased by suitable management. If then there were any shade of violet for which the coronal light was stronger than the skylight, there was good hope that the photographic plate would be sensitive to the difference and would detect and record its shape. So that's quite interesting. Basically, being able to photograph the sun's corona using violet or ultraviolet light in a normal sky, without the need of a coronagraph, and being able to see the violet light portions of the sun's corona. It is needless to say that the problem was not solved in a moment, but after many experiments in order to learn what shade of violet was best and how to manipulate the plate to most advantage, Dr. Huggins had the delight of finding he had secured a photograph of the corona. Further experiments enabled him to get not merely the bright inner corona, but also the fainter outer part, with its curved rays and dark rifts. Unfortunately, our climate offers very few days when the sky is clear enough for such delicate work. But our Columbus, having once shown the way to a new world, it will be easy for others to follow him, and for those astronomers who enjoy sunny skies, or who on mountain ranges are raised above the mists and vapors of lower earth, to work out in its proper fullness the method he has devised. And so that tide of glory, which has so long and ebbed and flowed around the sun unseen and unwatched, will at last have all its changes recorded on the sensitive plate, and the old lesson of the power of patience and perseverance to vanquish difficulties will have received yet another illustration. Oops-a-daisy. But a total eclipse has other lessons than these. From the Bible itself, we learn to look on the sun as the type of him who is the Son of righteousness and light of the world. Has the brevity of its eclipse no word of teaching and comfort? Day by day, year by year, the sun sheds down his light upon untold millions of men, and most of them pass from their cradle to their grave without ever knowing the horror of great darkness when he is hidden in eclipse. And to those to whom it comes, how brief is the period of withdrawal? Not 8 minutes in the extremest case. Have we not here in symbol what elsewhere our loving Father has set forth in word? For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith the Lord thy Redeemer. Let's remember that this is a Christian Sunday magazine he's writing in. So he's basically putting out some theology here. But there is a need for the eclipse. But for it, our eyes would never behold the glory that is ever there, for the glare and glitter which hang about earthly things dazzle us. Happy those who, in the hour of darkness, when the night has left things, happy those who in the hour of darkness, when the light has left the things of earth, can behold and rejoice in the glory of the heavens. Happier far those whose hearts, more sensitive even than the photographic plate, can perceive the glory amid the sunshine, and who, whilst it remains unseen by the eyes of earthly men, vibrate to its slightest movement and endure as seeing him who is invisible. Oh, it looks like that's it. So he ended with some theology there. And it's not surprising, like I said, it's a Sunday magazine, which was a Christian magazine. So basically, Edward Walter Maunder was, putting forth a little theological interpretation of what can be seen in a total solar eclipse. And I will add that those final words, he pretty well recycled them and repeated them, 14 years later in 1897, when his old record of the corona article was published in Knowledge magazine. It was published on January 1st, 1997, and he recycled that final paragraph. So how much time? We got 3 minutes left. So that's it. This is Edward Walter Maunder's earliest expression of his opinion that the winged sun symbols of, specifically in this case, Assyria, because he didn't mention anything else, could have been inspired by this winged sun pattern. And he went on later to elaborate on that. So let's just read that one last time, since we do have a little bit of time left. The comparison of the corona to a star does not, however, always hold equally good, for it is so far from presenting the same appearance in every eclipse that in no two is it of the same shape, brightness, or extent. But its varied appearances may perhaps be grouped under two principal forms, either as it sends forth beams of nearly equal length from every side and so presents the appearance of a star, or as the outer corona consists almost entirely of two great streamers on opposite sides of the sun, so that the whole closely resembles the ring with wings, the symbol which on Assyrian monuments is always shown as floating over the head of the king, and which is designed to indicate the presence and the protection of the deity. It is indeed by no means impossible that this symbol actually owed its origin to the revelations of a total eclipse, and not to any supposed analogy between the ring and wings and the divine attributes of eternity and power. So clearly putting forth the basic idea there. He doesn't talk about the bird tail pattern that's clearly visible in the polar regions of the sun's corona, and which is clearly seen in the Mesopotamian versions of the winged sun symbol. He doesn't speak about the Egyptian winged sun symbols at all. So this is his earliest expression, and he puts it out as a possibility. He even says, it is by no means impossible. So he's just putting it out there. He's saying it's not impossible, when in fact it's not only very possible, but highly probable, and basically almost certain. Pretty well certain, actually. I think there's more than enough evidence to pretty definitively state that the winged sun symbols of Assyria and Egypt were in fact inspired by the bird-like pattern that appears in the sun's corona during some total solar eclipses. That's it for now.